What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. I'm super pumped. We've got a very cool guest with us today. As always, he is considered the Soul Archaeologist. He's a spiritual messenger, author, and healer. God expresses through him in a unique way. When people sit with him in transmission, they have a profoundly different experience of the divine in their body. Please welcome Ken W. Stone. Ken, thank you for joining us today. I am very excited for this conversation.
Me too. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me on, Deanna.
You are welcome. So, we already had quite a good conversation before we started recording. You didn't always do this.
No, no. I started my professional life as a sound engineer, working live concert work and some recording work, and then I eventually got into sales and was in the wireless business for a while, and then in financial services, originating loans as a mortgage lender.
Oh boy!
And then I became a healer.
Oh, that is awesome. So I love people that have done the corporate thing and then they found their path, their where they're supposed to be, their purpose, right? And so I think that a lot of people struggle with that in their life, and they just kind of go. That's why I created Label Free Podcast, is just to live dynamically on your own terms. We need to have people in corporate. We need those people. But if you are someone that is struggling with finding your purpose and you're wanting to live more dynamically on your own terms, what does that look like for you? And you don't have to live life the way people expect you to live it.
Oh, for sure. And in fact, I mean, I would say I've been living that departure point since I learned that I was a healer. And I mean, that happened in the fall of 2007. It wasn't what I thought my life was going to be. It wasn't what I wanted. It was very, very different. And so I would say if there's one kind of core energy that's been moving through that experience for me, it's about letting go of control. It's about surrender.
Yeah.
And really giving up the idea that I know what is about to unfold or where I'm supposed to be, and just open up to a deeper experience of divinity and let the divine show me the way and lead me wherever I'm meant to be and serve in the ways that I'm meant to serve and support others.
I love that. So you said you had like an awakening that you were to become a healer. So what prompted you to do whatever it was that you were doing that created that awakening to happen?
Great question. That's a great question. So what I started doing was I started doing exactly the thing I was most scared of. I got to a place in my life where I realized I am sort of bottled up and I'm contained in ways that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I was scared of lots of different stuff and very uncomfortable and unfulfilled. And I thought, I've been doing all the things that I think need to sort of fit with what other people think I should be doing or fit in society or whatever. And, so very congruent way with your theme of this podcast. And I realized there are this sort of tug that happens for me, and it scares the heck out of me. And I don't know what the next tug is going to be, where the next draw is going to be, but I'm doing it no matter what it is. And I had just started doing that. And this was just the next thing in that sequence.
I love it. And so you were doing, was it a meditation that you were being a part of? So you said that someone wrote it down in a note that said that you are a healer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in August of 2007, I learned to meditate. Okay. And I would say, I mean, I'm still a recovering type A personality, but I was a fully expressed type A personality in August of 2007. My assistant in my mortgage practice started calling me Zen Ken after I had learned to meditate, because there was such a shift in terms of how I was showing up. And then the following month in September, I felt drawn to go to an in-residence meditation retreat with the same organization. And it was there at the closing ceremony, which was a meditation where you were sort of randomly, air quotes, randomly paired with people. Nothing's random, of course, but the last person I was paired with was this gentleman who wrote on a piece of paper, "You should be working as a healer." And yeah, that was the turning point, I guess, or at least one of them.
Yeah. And so, well, that's amazing. I think that's beautiful. Number one. Number two, how important is it for people to embrace and practice some sort of meditation?
Well, I think, it's critical because I think there are actually different levels of meditation or different levels of engagement that are available to us as human beings. And so it really depends on where somebody's at developmentally. If there's no meditation happening, there's a particular form or a way of engaging in meditation, let's say, that's a nice transition from sort of being consumed or identified with one's thoughts and feelings. I'm sure people are familiar with that. Let's call it a mindfulness practice, right? I am not my thoughts, I am not my feelings, and so on. And then if we extend that and deepen that, it's almost like a never ending opening into deeper and deeper intimacy with self and with divinity. I think once we go in deep enough, what we discover underneath all the noise is divine presence. And it's actually embodied, it's within our being. And when we encounter that, something profoundly different begins to unfold in our lives. And from my perspective, it all comes down to that, right? I mean, that is the key to everything. So for sure, meditation, a really powerful practice.
And so when you said that there was a profound shift in how you were showing up, what did that look like to people around you?
Well, what it looked like is, I wonder what's going on with Ken. People would come into my mortgage. So in the outer, I came back from this meditation retreat and I felt like I was breathing oxygen for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just a very different experience of the world. And then I hired the guy who had told me this for an intuitive session, the first of my life. And in it, he said, you don't need to be trained. You know what you're doing. Just go do it. Or at least that's what I heard him say. And so I started doing that. And I don't know, January 1st, 2008, somebody's got a migraine headache. I put my hands on their head and the migraine goes away and my hands and feet start buzzing and tingling. So I started associating that buzzing and tingling with something profound that happened in session with people I was working with. And so, I mean, you're asking me what it looked like to people around me. And the reason I'm laughing is I'd be in my mortgage practice and a client would come in, a longtime client. I can remember one in particular, and my hands and feet would buzz and tingle. And I think, oh, God, do I have to tell this person about healing now? Like, and so, I'd answer their questions about the mortgage loan. And then I'd say, I'm feeling drawn to share something with you. And, and then I would tell people about, this other thing that was emerging in my life. And this one client who is an engineer, an electrical engineer, and he did programming as well in one of the tech things in Northern Colorado where I live. And he looked at me and he said, well, that's really interesting, Ken. And if it was anyone else, I'd kind of think they'd lost it. But because it's you, I have to believe this is real. Thanks for sharing that with me. And he kind of had a look on his face like, whoa.
Yeah.
Not what I expected to have today with my mortgage lender,
I know, right? So when you start buzzing and tingling like that, does that mean that you have to like touch that person, or what does that mean to you? Do you know now, or are you still figuring it out?
Yeah, it's always a prompt, right? It is the visceral experience that I have within my body, or at least one of them, maybe the most pronounced, of divine presence. So when that buzzing and tingling is like a form of guidance that's going on all the time. If I have an opportunity to speak or work with a client, or somebody wants to work with me, if there isn't deep resonance that I feel in my body, then I pass, because that is sort of the filter. If I'm in session with a client and my feet start buzzing, that means that they're coming into a state of alignment with divine presence within their being on an energetic level. And when my hands start buzzing, it means their body and other aspects of the outward expression of them are coming into resonance. So often if I'm working with somebody who's in physical discomfort and my hands start buzzing, that means that the pain is going away or disappearing completely. And it means all sorts of different things, right? I mean, there are all sorts of forms of feedback. And often when I'm working with a new client, it's sort of like, the best example I could give, and I only fly, and very poorly, remote control helicopters, but imagine if you're flying a helicopter and there are all these different channels of input, right? For me, that happens when I'm working with a group or an individual. And when it's a new individual, I sort of have to figure out and map that. So I'll ask lots of questions. What's going on for you? Is there some resonance that's coming up in your body when you blah, 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 blah. And so we map that the first time I work with a new client, and then that meaning is attached to them, but it's something that's coming in through my body.
What a beautiful gift. And so prior to you getting told that you were a healer, did you ever have those sensations before?
No, no.
So it was something that was turned on for you.
It was turned on for me, and it was phenomenally uncomfortable when it was turned on, right? I mean, it was like, what is going on? You know? And then as I became comfortable with it and aware of what it was, then it's like, if I do anything where that buzzing and tingling stops, then that's a behavior that I don't engage in anymore. So I remember maybe a year after I started doing this and exploring this with people, my sweetheart's parents had a New Year's Day, celebration or whatever. And I had a mimosa, and I touched the drink to my lips, and my hands and feet stopped buzzing. And I went, okay, I guess I'm done with alcohol. It was just like, I didn't drink much before that, and that was the end of it for me.
Wow.
So for me, that has become, I would say, a core kind of anchored experience within my being, and it's going on all the time. Right now, my crown is tingling, my third eye is buzzing, like all these things are going on that are giving me feedback about sort of what's going on in our conversation, probably also what's going on within the circle of people who are listening to the podcast and participating in this experience for us.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So, you're a spiritual messenger, author, and healer. So I get kind of what the spiritual messaging is, the buzzing and the tingling and talking to someone. Yeah. And you talked about the healing, placing your hands on someone. So what does that look like when you start working with someone? Like, what is that process when they say, you know what, I love what Ken's all about. I need to be more spiritually aligned, or I'm feeling like just moved to work with him. So what does that look like for someone when they come to you?
Sure. Well, I mean, there are a couple of different kind of avenues of work that I do with people. And I should say, I mean, I put my hands on people for maybe the first month or two, and then there's been no hands-on work since then. Okay. It's all remote.
Sure.
Often when I'm working with people, we won't even be on the phone together. We're just working energetically there wherever they are in the world. And I'll have private clients, they'll text me and say, hey, can I get a session when you're next available? Just let me know when you're connecting in. And so we're handling it over text and so on. But so you're asking how that engagement happens. I mean, it happens in different ways, right? Some people will hear me talk or go to my website or whatever, and they're thinking, well, geez, this is really interesting, or I wonder if this is real, or this is something I'm interested in exploring, right? So I have a free program that I offer that's really both a teaching and an experiential process. It's actually a 17-week program. It's a really robust program. And the reason it's free is that I realized a long time ago that the barrier of entry to working with me is the credibility gap, right? I mean, it's like, this guy, I mean, I look like a retired, American football player. I mean, I just don't look the part at all, Yeah. I mean, so there's that credibility gap as well. Never mind what I'm actually saying or talking about, what actually happens with people. So people often need to have an experience first, and it's best if it's free. They could just go have the experience in their own terms. And then there are a number of different programs that people can work through, and I do virtual retreats and so on. But I also work with other spiritual messengers in private session. And when I'm working with other spiritual messengers, often these are people who are referred to me or people I've met personally in other ways. Yeah. And these tend to be people who are sort of doing the last 3% of their integration work, if you understand what I mean. Like they've done an enormous amount of internal work. They're kind of coming up against that glass ceiling of where personal mastery and spiritual mastery kind of come into a transition zone, and they're looking for support, and they just haven't been able to find anyone to really support them at that depth. And maybe a friend of theirs says, oh, you ought to know this weirdo named Ken Stone. I mean, I've worked with him. I don't even know how to describe what happens. Yeah, it's a deeper experience of God in your body for sure, but it's so much more than that. And since I've been working with him, I'm connecting with my audience in a much deeper way. I feel much more fulfilled. There's more time in my day, or whatever the heck they say, right? And then the person calls me up and says, okay, you're too weird for words. How do we do this? So
I don't think it's weird at all. I mean, I personally, like, I believe in everything that you're talking about. I recently, for the last, I don't even know if this is anything, but I talk to Julie about it often. The last 3-4 months, I've seen nothing but repeating numbers all the time. Never in my life seen anything like that. And I'm just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It's very interesting because I don't look for it. I look at my phone randomly. It's repeating numbers. I look at the street sign, repeating numbers. It's just like nonstop. And so it's been very like, is that a thing?
Yeah, for sure. That's a thing. I mean, the thing is, we all awaken in different ways, right? We open up at deeper levels. We come to deeper levels of intimacy with the divine in lots of different ways. And so the question, it seems to me, that's forever in front of us is, are we going to pay attention to it?
Sure.
Are we going to take the next step and follow it and pursue it? And it's really, rather than going into like a pre-programmed path or some blueprint that we know ahead of time, it's about stepping into the unknown. It's about going into the mystery of divine presence, and who knows what happens next. And that can be a little uncomfortable, right? But on the flip side, it could be profoundly fulfilling and exciting and energizing. Yeah. I mean, I used to be a mortgage lender focused on financial services, and I thought that was the bee's knees. And that was nothing compared to this. And no knock against financial services. I'm just saying, for me, I'm definitely doing what I'm here to do now. And I had no idea until I stepped into the mystery.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said that you worked with a number of advanced former students of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Who each said unprompted following their initial session with him that was the deepest spiritual experience of my life. So tell us about that type of yoga. That it's a yoga, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Maharishi was, or Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He was the founder of Transcendental Meditation, right? So, a really significant kind of guru and spiritual presence in the world.
Sure.
And so these were people. And this is sort of like your random numbers, right? They're not random, but I sort of randomly was referred to of all these advanced students of his, not all of them, but some of them, right? And some of them were people who had traveled in Europe, who had been in his flying meditation rooms where they actually had padding on the walls and they would levitate and fly into the walls while they were meditating together. I mean, just all sorts of really profound spiritual experiences with this incredible guru, right? So they've had all that background. And then they get referred to me and they come out of the session and they're like, this was the most profound spiritual experience. And I'm like, what? I mean, how is that even possible?
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like mind blowing. It's like, so, and I mean, I feel a deep resonance with this sort of lineage that includes Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. But the funny thing is I haven't studied in that lineage. I mean, I haven't studied in any tradition. I haven't had a guru. I haven't, I was raised Catholic. I left the Catholic Church in my adolescence. I wandered around. I explored, tried to discover if there is a God, figured out, yep, there is a God, then wanted to experience God for 20 years. And so when I started sort of sharing this gift that God shares through me with people, I mean, it's jaw-dropping, and it continues to be. The kinds of experiences people have are just profound. I mean, it's incredible. And I think, how is this all happening? I mean, this miracle is just unfolding in people. And I mean, they are healed physically, emotionally, they're healed relationally. There are all these things that are happening. From my perspective, though, those things are a byproduct of that deeper experience of the divine within rather than the point of what we're doing, even if it's the thing that drives them and motivates them to come, work with me or take a class or whatever.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Where can people find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Well, there are a couple of places, right? My website is a wonderful resource, kenwstone.com. And then if they're interested in registering for the free class, they can do that at exploringdivineresonance.com. And that'll just direct them right in, put your name and email address in, and then you'll actually get a login to my online learning platform, the Resonance Institute. And then the classes will start dripping into your inbox and you can start engaging in that. It's totally free, no obligation or anything like that. And those are a couple of great ways to connect.
It's exploring what now? What was it?
Exploringdivineresonance.com. And if you go to my website, kenwstone.com, you'll find it there as well. There's just a particular registration page, and it directs to it from Exploring Divine Resonance or kenwstone.com.
Very cool. You guys, I'm going to put those links in the show notes, so don't hesitate. If you are moved and you feel the need to work with Ken, go and click those links. Go check out the free class, and you know if you are going to be moved. You're going to be hearing this and you're going to be tingling all over. One quick question about the class that's free. Is it just on your own? So is it something you just do by yourself, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a class that I taught last year in 2021 live. And so when you're going through class, you're watching or listening to the Zoom or the audio recordings. There are transcripts there as well. And then there are lots of other people who are taking it with you, are taking it right now. And when you have questions, you can just submit the questions or comment right on the page, and then I'll personally respond to you on the page. So, and you'll see other people's comments and my question, or their questions, and my comments to their questions, my answers. So all of that is just, we are going through this experience together. The thing this may be a little bit hard to understand rationally, but when I'm doing a transmission that gets recorded, I have an experience of everyone who will ever listen to it while it's happening. For me, it's happening outside of time and space. So anyone who participates in a class or transmission that I offer, doesn't matter whether it's live or recorded, you're going to have an experience of it that's live. And of course, the only way to experience that is to go register for the class yourself and have that experience, and then share your comments, share your feedback, share your questions, and I'll look forward to those and interacting and responding to people. So
you can take that on your own time whenever it's convenient for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. All 17 classes are available. They'll drip to you in an email format and remind you this one's available. But the truth is that when you register, all 17 are available. And I mean, there are people right now who are taking a class a day. You know, they're telling me, I'm taking this one class a day. It's a pretty intense level of study, but hey, more power to you.
I think I might sign up. So what could someone expect to get out of it?
Well, I think one of the things that people can expect to have is a different experience in their body of the divine. So a way of saying that really succinctly is you're going to experience the divine within. And that doesn't, I'm not bringing a context for that. So each participant in the class has their own perspective on that, right? So we have people from all faith traditions and all spiritual backgrounds and perspectives from all around the world who are participating and have participated in this program in class. And you'll see questions from different traditions that are showing up. So this is not about letting go of your tradition. It's about deepening your tradition, deepening your relationship for Christians with Christ, and so on with each tradition. So, and there are people who come with no tradition, maybe people who are really curious or skeptical and wonder, is this real? I want to be open to spiritual healing. I have no idea what the heck it is. This guy's talking about something that sounds interesting. Deanna sounds interested. Maybe I want to be part of this experience. They don't need to come with any particular background. And I mean, it's helpful if you come with an open mind, but I mean, the reality is you come however you come, right? I remember at the beginning, I had a session with a woman who was just giving me the business on the phone. I don't know if I believe in this and blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, listen, I don't know if I believe in it either. So, you know, like it, like, you know, this is your time and money. I mean, it doesn't, you can sit here and yell at me all you want. I don't care. It's not like, this isn't a personal thing for me. I haven't like studied for decades to develop this. The guy who told me you should be working as a healer after we came out of silence, he said, you've done this in many previous lifetimes, and you're going to discover this is more natural than breathing for you. And I don't know about the lifetimes piece, but believe it or not, seriously, it's more natural than breathing for me. It is just at the most essential level of my being expression or my divine being expression. This happens. And I would be honored. It would be a privilege to share that with you, Deanna, and all of your listeners, if they are so inspired, or any of them, anyone who would like to come participate, it'd be an honor to share. And then beyond the experience of the divine within, who knows, you know, deep flow states, inspiration, I mean, you may discover spiritual gifts that you were unaware of. There are all sorts of, maybe there's spontaneous healing that happens. Who knows what follows, but it would be an honor to walk with you in that way, for sure.
You gave me the chills. I'm like, woo, I'm tingling over here.
Awesome.
One more question before we start wrapping things up. Yeah. And this is what we talked about before we started recording. You said God expresses through you, and I believe in God. And you said that you don't have to. You can have other different religious backgrounds to experience these kind of things with you. Can you just talk about that before we start wrapping things up?
So, for a long time, I was scared of the name God because it had all these meanings, right? Sure. I was raised in the Catholic Church, and I mean, I've had all sorts of wonderful reconciliation and I spent time with the Christian mystic Thomas Keating and interviewed him and so on, and had a wonderful connection with him. So obviously the traumas of the past for me have integrated and so on. But initially I said the word divine and I stayed away from God. And after those deeper integrations, I started realizing, I mean, really, these are placeholder names.
Yeah.
And but they have a particular resonance for me. And so for me, the words that resonate most are divinity and God. And for others, it might be source or universe, or it doesn't matter, right? Yeah. And so when people come and when we sit together and we explore divinity, it doesn't matter what the context of the background, the perspective that each of us brings, whether it's Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Jewish or fill in the blank, right? It really doesn't matter. We can all have an experience that has a particular meaning for each of us, and that meaning could be very different. We might not even agree about what the experience is because we all have different central nervous systems and perspectives and all these things. But at the end of the day, at least from my perspective, this divine presence is in all of us in equal measure, no matter who we are. Call it God, call it divinity, call it whatever you want.
Sure.
And for me, the opportunity to share that experience with others is such a profound invitation. I mean, it's to go to such an intimate place with people and support them in having an experience with the ultimate healing presence. I mean, it's just incredible. And I realize it's not me. This is what's working through me, if that makes sense.
Total sense. Thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. So before we say goodbye, any last words of wisdom or advice you'd like to leave with the audience?
Yeah. It all comes down to one thing. Whatever you're trying to accomplish, whatever is most important to you in your life, personally, professionally, doesn't matter, your health, your wealth, whatever it is, it all comes down to one thing. And here's what the one thing is. The one thing is an embodied experience of divine presence. Once you have that, it unlocks resonance in every area of your life in ways you literally cannot imagine. It all comes down to one thing.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your story. I am moved, and you gave me the tingles. So I just love it. And what a beautiful gift that you have, that God is working through you and helping others. So that is just amazing. So thank you again.
Thank you, Deanna. It's been an absolute privilege and honor to be with you. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu, Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.